Hello, Cancer. I am Poetic Heretic, and this is your January 2021 astrology forecast. Remember, as always, that forecasts like these will be most accurate for your rising sign. However, you may also use them for your sun or moon sign as well, if you would like to. I apologize that this is coming to you a bit late. My health problems were acting up quite badly around the end of December, and so I had to take a break, but I am here now, and so let us proceed with your forecast. The first major development in January is that after spending more than 6 months in the same sign, Mars finally leaves Aries and enters Taurus, signaling a huge turning point. This occurs on January 6th at 5:27 p.m. Eastern Time. Whatever lesson, experience, or process this represented for you over the past 6 months should now be nearing completion. For you, Cancer, Mars exits your 10th house of career and enters your 11th house of groups. Thus, the increased focus, motivation, anger, or desire in the area of your career or public image now concludes and transfers instead to your friends or social group. Additionally, as soon as Mars enters Taurus, it becomes square to both Jupiter and Saturn by sign, as well as co-present with unstable Uranus, marking the beginning of a stressful theme that we will see throughout the month and that I will get into more later. Notice in the chart on screen that the Libra moon is already applying to an opposition to Mars when it first enters Taurus. Early the next day, when the moon enters Scorpio at 3:54 a.m., that opposition will be further intensified and we may see some action that will qualify as the first indicator of this energetic shift in the early hours of January 7th. This action will likely reflect Mars-Uranus themes now that Mars in Taurus is co-present with Uranus, and so we will see themes of fighting for one's freedom, fighting for what is individual or unique or innovative, and or simply some rather explosive developments. Venus is also applying to a trine to Mars at the time of its ingress into Taurus, perfecting less than 3 days later on January 9th at 10:52 a.m. This aspect may be the one saving grace of what is otherwise a very stressful time, showing that out of this stress may come some positive breakthroughs involving love, money, relating to others, and or what feels good. These would manifest most likely anytime between the 7th and the 9th. The next event we have is the new moon in Capricorn on January 13th at exactly midnight. To be clear, by midnight on the 13th, I mean the night of the 12th. So at the stroke of midnight, this new moon is exact, and it is quite the interesting one because it is within a degree and a half of an exact conjunction with Pluto. This tells us that this new moon will be likely a very intense, deep, and transformative one. However, the new moon is the beginning of a new month-long cycle, so the intensity of this new moon may be commenting more on the events to come in the next few weeks than on the night it goes exact. Nevertheless, an intense mood may pass over many of us on this night. The darkness of it is softened somewhat by the fact that this new moon is in aversion to Saturn, the most negative planet in the chart by sect, and it is co-present with Venus, the most positive planet in the chart by sect. So we have a mix of the deep Plutonian passions with the blessings and harmony of Venus. The new moon taking place in the sign of Capricorn tells us that there is a sense of earthiness, practicality, and big power structures related to these new beginnings. For you, Cancer, the new moon is occurring in your 7th house of relationships, so you can expect new beginnings that are deep and transformative in the area of your major relationships, and remember that this includes all kinds of major relationships. It is worth noting that immediately following the new moon, the sun perfectly conjoins Pluto the next day, the 14th, at 9:18 a.m. This is bound to uncover some darkness, as the light of the sun shines into the most hidden and secretive of realms represented by Pluto. Issues that have been buried may surface. Disturbing power dynamics may enter awareness. Events that feel big and passionate are more likely to occur. Backing up slightly, we have the third and final Mars-Saturn square taking place also on January 13th at 6:10 a.m., thus immediately following the new moon. The reason I say third and final is because this square to Mars is part of a longer cycle that originally began technically at the end of June of 2020, when Mars first entered Aries, where it would eventually go retrograde and thus remain for just over 6 months. During the time it spent in Aries and because of the retrograde, it made squares to Saturn twice. But it is not until now, after having finally changed signs from Aries to Taurus, that Mars is making its third and final square to Saturn, a planet that has also since changed signs from Capricorn to Aquarius. It is true that during this time Mars made additional squares to Jupiter and Pluto, but the square to Saturn is the most relevant for this month. The first time that Mars squared Saturn was in August, and the second time was in late September. The reason all of this is important is that, similar to what we went over earlier with Mars ingress into Taurus, whatever challenging theme represented by these squares that began in your life during July or August of 2020 is now reaching its conclusion in January of 2021. The situation has likely already shifted in some way, represented by Mars having entered Taurus on the 6th, but it still has one final act before it reaches completion. This final act consists of a stressful situation taking place in the area of your friends or social group and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death that involves focused action, anger, motivation, or desire, as well as authority, obstacles, limitation, or reality that pushes you into new areas of activity. These new areas, as well as the areas that will likely be affected by this development, include your career or public image, your creative self-expression, your major relationships, and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death. Generally, Mars square Saturn is a very powerful indicator, especially when Mars is within a few degrees of a perfect conjunction with Uranus, as we have here, of the fight for freedom from restraint. Mars wants to push forward and Saturn wants to hold back. With Uranus nearby, Mars wants to fight for Uranian things like rebellion, revolution, what is unique and innovative, and what is shocking and unexpected. Mars joining forces with Uranus is highly impulsive, while Saturn is the exact opposite. So with this aspect, we see the struggle between these very different forces. During this time, we also have Venus trine Uranus perfecting the same day at 7:26 p.m., helping to facilitate breakthroughs involving what we like and enjoy and or how we relate to others, as well as what is different, unique, rebellious, shocking, or innovative. Overall, it may very well be that the stress and tension signified by the squares from Mars and Uranus in Taurus to Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury in Aquarius is given an outlet or release in the trine from Venus in Capricorn to Mars and Uranus in Taurus. Moving forward to January 17th, we have expansive Jupiter forming a stressful square to rebellious Uranus at 5:46 p.m. Again, we have a stressful situation that develops in the area of your friends or social group and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death that pushes you into new areas of activity and that involves growth or expansion, as well as freedom, rebellion, shocking or unexpected change, or what is unique or innovative. Your work, health, schedule, or day-to-day activities, your beliefs, spirituality, ideals, or what is foreign to you, and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death are all areas that can be affected by this dynamic aspect. Generally, a Jupiter-Uranus square often brings situations where we are challenged to grow in new or unique ways, and this may even be quite exciting, but this growth or expansion into the new also brings a significant amount of stress with it. While this exact aspect is a one-time event for now, Jupiter will still be square Uranus by sign for most of this year, so some of the effects that I've just described may be ongoing throughout 2021. The fact that Mars at 5 degrees of Taurus is so closely caught up with the perfecting of this aspect here in January further indicates the unstable nature of this development, and we will undoubtedly see even more action when that Mars-Uranus conjunction perfects, which brings us to our next point of interest. On January 20th at 3:37 p.m., we have the Mars-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. This manifests as a fusion of Mars and Uranus energy, resulting in an event taking place in the area of your friends or social group, involving action, motivation, anger, or desire, as well as freedom, rebellion, sudden change, or what is unique or innovative, and that ends up affecting your career or public image, your creative self-expression, and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death. It is interesting and very significant to note, as you can see in the chart on screen, the moon's co-presence with Mars and Uranus this same day. This strongly activates the Mars-Uranus conjunction and essentially serves as further confirmation that the main events of the Mars-Uranus conjunction will in fact take place on the same day as the conjunction, especially later that night as the moon passes over it. The moon will do this and be exactly halfway between them at 3:50 a.m. the next morning, the 21st. Look for intense events at any point within a few hours of this time. As I alluded to earlier, when Mars and Uranus get together, the best description for the mixture of these two energies is fighting for freedom, with Mars being the fighter and Uranus being the freedom. The fact that the moon, Mars, and Uranus in Taurus are all square to the Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mercury in Aquarius is an incredibly powerful indicator that as this part of January approaches, the dynamic tension in all of our lives is going to be extremely palpable. This will either be exciting, terrifying, or both, depending on how it hits each individual's chart specifically. The final event this month that we have to look at is the full moon in Leo on January 28th at 2:16 p.m. The full moon is where things come to a head, and this one takes place in your second house of values. So expect things to come to a head at this time in the area of your money, values, or what you have. As students of astrology know, a full moon is a sun-moon opposition, and in this full moon, we have the sun part of it conjunct Jupiter within 1/5 of a degree, an extremely close conjunction indeed. This means that Jupiter things like expansion, growth, beliefs, knowledge, and ideals are very much connected to this full moon. However, notice also that the full moon is square both Mars and Uranus, which are still not too far from each other. This will, without a doubt, stir up the Mars-Uranus conjunction themes that we just went over a couple minutes ago. As if all that wasn't already enough, we also have a near-exact Venus-Pluto conjunction at this time, indicating extreme passions and deep intensity in relating to others. Fighting for freedom from restraint with the squares to Mars and Uranus, doing so in a very bold and loud way with the moon in Leo, having our beliefs and ideals supporting this fight with Jupiter conjunct the Sun, and doing all of this in a very deep and passionate way with Venus conjunct Pluto is a very likely manifestation of this full moon. Obviously, this will vary to some extent from person to person, but that is the general energy for all of humanity at this time. Overall, January is a very dynamic month. There is a heavy Aquarius emphasis, which we will continue to see into February, but already we are powerfully breaking into new territory. Even though the madness that was 2020 will live on throughout 2021 in various ways, here in January, we really are in the future, and I want to emphasize that strongly. Especially ever since the new era signaling Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius last month, this is the time to embrace the future, as the energy of Aquarius is all about. In many ways, it is a transitional period in all of our lives, with both Venus and Pluto still behind in Capricorn, indicating there is still some work to be done there, even as for the most part, we now focus on the future. What is especially unique about January, however, is that it is our first big push into the future. We see this in the many square aspects occurring this month. The stars make it about as clear as it possibly gets with these many square aspects. This month, there will be plenty of dynamic tension and stressful situations that force us to take action and enter new areas of activity. While many will fight for this future, symbolized by the Mars-Uranus conjunction, many will also want to hang on to the status quo, symbolized by Saturn and all the other planets in Aquarius. Ironically, Mars and Uranus are in Taurus, a sign that likes things the way they are, while Saturn and its cohorts are in Aquarius, the sign of the future. And so we all now live out this strange dynamic. January pushes us into the future whether we like it or not, so we might as well go willingly. All right, Cancer, that is it. That is your January forecast. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe if you are not already, as I am always uploading more astrology content to this channel. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I want to wish you, despite the quite frankly crazy energy that we have this month, a wonderful month of January indeed. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks again, Cancer. Bye for now.